Lori La Bey is a passionate and inspiring keynote speaker and the founder of Alzheimer's Speaks, a Minnesota-based advocacy group and media outlet, making an international impact by providing education and support for those dealing with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Her own mother struggled with dementia for over 30 years. Her radio show is also believed to be the first program dedicated to dementia in the world, along with the first webinar series called Dementia Chats, whose experts are those diagnosed with the disease. La Bey ignited the fire that sparked the first dementia-friendly community in the United States. Lori is a highly sought-after speaker, trainer, and advocate for new delivery systems and attitudes towards those with living and dealing with dementia. La Bey is driven to provide a variety of free resources to connect family, friends, professionals, advocates, and those just interested in learning how to live positive and purpose-filled lives with dementia. Lori La Bey, changing how caregiving is perceived, received, and delivered.
Help me welcome to the stage, Lori La Bey.
People aren't in control of their life. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of angst, from home to work, to government, to healthcare, and even the possibility of war. I think we really need to look at ourselves as a society and a culture in terms of what's going on. I want to pose a question to you. I want to know what you think the common links are between chronic illness, the flu and the crud epidemic that's going around, the fiscal cliff, and the mass shootings that we're seeing. Just yell it out. Stress. Definitely stressful. What else? Depression, fear. There are so many variables, and I agree with every single one of those, but I really think the overall umbrella with each of them is our care culture. You see, we don't even talk about having a care culture. We aren't communicating the way we used to. We aren't connected as a community the way I remember my neighborhood being connected. I'm pushing 60 and I could go anywhere in my neighborhood and use the bathroom, get a sandwich, or get a Band-Aid. We aren't connected. We don't know one another. We don't trust one another anymore. And I think it's time that we step forward and dare to care. You see, our care culture, to me, is our most powerful tool, but we can't use it if we don't even have the conversation. Now, care culture, I didn't even know what it was, didn't have a clue about it until my mom ventured on a 30-year journey with dementia, and that changed my life. But her disease, I believe, is the biggest gift I'll ever receive in my life, because she taught me so many beautiful, simple lessons. And what I found was every single one of those lessons is applicable to all of my life and all of yours, and at all ages. What's good for dementia is really good for everyone. The first thing I learned is that we are able to give and receive care from the moment we're conceived. Now, most of you are going to argue with me and go, come on, Lori, how can a baby in a womb give or receive care? But I challenge you, how many bellies have you patted? How many tummies have you talked to? How many conversations and outcomes have changed? We are connected on deeper levels than what we ever have realized. And we have to start consciously caring and accepting our power of one, our impact on one another. That's how we get hope. That's how we collaborate. That's how we gather strength and make true positive changes. One of my other lessons had to do with failure. You know, I was really scared to fail. I was kind of that control freak and that perfectionist. And what I learned was failure is just our path to success. It gets us a step closer. We have to reframe how we look at failure. You see, it's not about perfection. It's about progress, and we can't move forward if we're paralyzed in fear, because we might not be good enough. We might not do good enough. We have to empower our children, our family, our friends, our coworkers, our employees, our society to make change, to try to improve, and to give them accolades for doing that instead of beating them up. We have to realize that we are much more alike than different. When we separate and think we're different, we create barriers and walls and enemies. When we choose to see how similar we are, we create friendships and bonds, and we move forward and we learn. And to me, life is all about learning. One of my biggest lessons was, what is the lesson? When I would get pushed against the wall, I would have to ask, what is the lesson? And you know what? When I asked that question, I found that I consciously was looking for the answer, and it would appear. In wrapping up, I have to share one story with you, and it has to do with the chicken, Betty the bald chicken. You see, Betty lived on this farm, and she had this brilliant, brilliant life. She was connected to family and friends, and one day she was out on the farm nibbling on some corn, and she felt this tug and this pull. And she looked around, and nobody was by her, but her shoulder hurt, and she had this gut feeling her life was about to change. And then she bowed her head to eat, and she saw one feather had fallen. She decided not to tell anybody about it, because what the heck do you say? And about 3 months later, she was out in the barnyard again eating, and she felt this tug and this pull, but this time she squawked out in pain, and when she did, all the other animals turned and looked at her, and she saw the fear in their eyes, and she saw them literally pushing her away and pulling their young back. And from that point forward, no one would have anything to do with her, and she bowed her head and she cried, and she felt ashamed. And as she looked down, she saw all these feathers scattered around, and she saw that her body was bloody and pockmarked. And she walked off into the outskirts of the farm, and she cried these crocodile tears in pain. And her eyes were blurred, and she tripped on a rock, and she fell off this big cliff into this ravine, and she's screaming on her way down, thinking, no one's even gonna know that I'm gone, nobody cares. But what she didn't know was at the bottom of the ravine was a whole nother community called the Caring Corral. And they whisked her in, and they never asked her what was wrong. You see, this story tells us that most of us, if we're honest, have been Betty. We've been pushed away and shunned. Most of us have walked away from someone in need, and most of us are part of the Caring Corral. It's what moment will we continue to live in? Thank you very much for your time.